After delivering the Israelites from Pharaoh and their bondage in Egypt, God gave them the Ten Commandments in Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 through 17. These commandments served as a foundation for what would become the Law of Moses. Yet, in a sense, this foundation also had its own foundation. The Ten Commandments provided the basis for the law, but the only reason that the law mattered was because of the one who gave the law. So who was the lawgiver? Well, of course, that was God. They needed to understand this in order to appreciate the importance of the laws that were given. They were reminded of this in the preface to the Ten Commandments, which we find in Exodus 20 and verse 2. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and out of the house of slavery. By delivering them from their bondage in Egypt, God showed his power over the world, his superiority over man-made gods and human rulers, as well as his care for his people. Because God is who he is, they were to obey the commandments that he was giving to them, and the same is true for us today. There are many laws and rules presented to us in every area of life. However, before we decide whether we will obey these various laws or not, we need to remember who it is that is the lawgiver. The scriptures teach that we are to submit to those in authority. These include our parents. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment, with promise, so that it may be well with you, and so that you may live long on the earth. Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 3. Of course, this is in reference to children while they are still in their young age, still living under their father's house. They are to submit to the will of their parents, to their parents' guidance. But also, we are to submit to the civil authorities. We read in 1 Peter 2, verses 13 and 14, submit yourself for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether to a king as the one in authority, or to governors as sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do right. So often we hear it stated that we are to obey the laws of the land. Those civil authorities are the ones who either enact or enforce the laws of the land. And we as children of God, we are to be good law-abiding citizens and submit to that authority. In the church, we're told that we are to submit to the authority of the elders in the church. Hebrews 13 and verse 17 says, obey your leaders and submit to them, for they keep watch over your souls as those who will give account. Let them do this with joy and not with grief, for this would be unprofitable for you. But also we're told that we are even to submit to our own brethren, and be subject to one another in the fear of Christ, Ephesians 5:21. And even though this is not an example of one with authority over us, this is an example of submission on our part. However, all such submission is conditional. In other words, just because someone in authority attempts to bind some new law upon us, that does not mean that we are to submit to that law. We're to obey parents in the Lord, Ephesians 6:1. Therefore, if a parent is instructing their child to do something that is wrong, and that child is old enough to understand the difference between wrong and right, then that child is under no obligation to submit to their parent in that matter. Also, when presented with a law from civil authorities that contradicts God's law, we must have the attitude of the apostles that we must obey God rather than men, as we read in Acts 5:29. God's law always supersedes the laws of man at any level, be it local, state, or federal. God's law is above all. Also, we are to oppose elders in the church who are in opposition to God. Paul told Timothy, do not receive an accusation against an elder except on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses. Those who continue in sin rebuke in the presence of all, so that the rest also will be fearful of sinning. 1 Timothy 5:19 and 20. John wrote about the need to confront Diotrephes for his attempt to control the church. Friends, ultimately, we submit to the Lord. We submit to other authorities, parents, civil rulers, elders, other brethren, to the degree that God allows us to submit to them. But we are always to put the Lord first. So today, remember the lawgiver. God is over all and has proven his love for us. Therefore, let us obey him and not put anyone over him in regard to our allegiance and our obedience. Friends, we thank you for joining us for our program today, and have a blessed day.